Hi, everybody. My name is Brandon Box-Higdon, and I am the Director of Forensics at Bentonville High School, as well as the current president of the Arkansas Communication and Theater Arts Association. One of the goals that I have set for myself for this term of office was to be able to set up a teacher's toolkit area to share some of the PowerPoints that I use within my classroom setting for Forensics 1. Within these PowerPoints, they create not only the national standards, but also the standards from within the state of Arkansas, as well as the standards that I look for in regards to each one of the events. And I thought that I would take a few moments to create this video for you to be able to walk you through what my classroom setting kind of looks like in regards to Forensics 1. So the actual current events that are being offered by NSDA that we host here in Arkansas are humorous interp, dramatic interp, duo interp, and program oral interp. Program oral interp is something that I will cover on a separate PowerPoint because it is a little bit harder to create. It is probably one of the most difficult events to tackle, but it's also the one that provides most creative leeway and license for the student in order to prepare the event for competition. So let's get started. A little disclaimer. Some of the videos that I have embedded into this PowerPoint are from the national stage. So when you watch these videos, students or coaches, please keep in mind that language or content could possibly be an issue. The out-of-state expectations are very, very, very different than here in state. It's very, very clear that if there is language or some sense of content, you will need to make sure that you have a discussion not only with your student, but maybe also with your administration to find out if there is a way to be able to edit that piece, cut it out, change it, manipulate it so that it will work for in-state. If you decide as a program to be able to want to go outside of state, you may have a little bit more creative leeway in regards to content or language. And it's just different here in the state of Arkansas. When you are watching these videos, the things that you need to keep in mind is that I want my students, I tell them, you need to be mature when you're watching them. Sometimes there is a little bit of content in there. But what I'm wanting you to do is I'm wanting you to watch these videos meticulously. When you see these videos are on the national stage. They are the top 6 at a national competition. They are competing for first in the country. By the time that this person gets to that stage, they will have competed in front of anywhere from 35 to 45 to 50 judges over a 3-day time period. And so there is a reason why those videos are on that stage. And you as a student, you as a competitor, you as a coach need to go in there and watch why. Why do you think that they have made it to the stage? Pay close attention also to the format that they use in regards to setting up their performance. They may use what we call a teaser. A teaser is an actual chunk of that piece that you tease the audience with at the beginning of the production, at the beginning of the performance, and then you're going to transition into intro. Your intro needs to be creative. It needs to be fun. It needs to include any range of information. And then it ends with title and author. And what I always tell my kids is on title and author, you are slowly sliding physically and vocally back into character so that by the end of saying the author's name, you are back into the piece. You're to watch these videos for physicality, for vocal choices, for presentational style, for blocking ideas. There's a number of different ranges of things that you can be watching these videos for because these are the top. These are the top 6 in the entire country for that particular year. They're very creative in how they put those pieces together. There's a very meticulous style of format. And listen, we in the state of Arkansas can do this too. It is so easy to kind of sit and watch these things just for entertainment, but when you watch them from an educational standpoint, that's what you want to be watching. So the first one I'm going to start with is duo. Duo interpretation is so much fun. Your challenge is that is a 10-minute performance of a published play or story. Ideally, I will tell my kids this. You can use the search engines on Google. You can pay money for membership into those script sites. 4 and 6 Fanatics is one that comes to mind. However, when you do that, you are going to run the risk of a piece that you're going to possibly be competing with in the same room. So what I suggest is that you go outside of the parameter, that you look for maybe a short story that has a possibility of being able to create all of the different characters with that and use it as a duo. There's so many different options in regards to where to find a piece. If you go to NSDA, they've also got searching engines that can help you find pieces, things like that. Your competitors are going to need to use what's called offstage focus. The competitors never look at each other in the performance of the actual piece itself. They can look at each other during intro. The other thing that they cannot do is they cannot touch. So if they are going to hold hands, that's how they need to do it. Okay? There is something to be said about being creative in regards to blocking, in regards to movement. They cannot look at each other. They cannot touch. Can you imagine there are pieces out there that have fight scenes that are so meticulous, and then you suddenly realize they are never touching. It's so cool. No props or costumes are used. A heads up, if your script, like for instance with these 2 young ladies, if this script says, "Oh my gosh, I love that red blouse that you have on," do not wear a red blouse, okay? Don't do it. That kind of becomes a costume, okay? The other thing is you'll notice that these ladies are dressed similarly. That's a hard word. I don't necessarily think that is a prerequisite that you necessarily have to do. We at Bentonville do this because it really puts them into they're very simpatico. They look like a team. They look like a duo. You'll notice that at nationals, where if it's a young man and a young lady, the guy will maybe wear a shirt that matches the lady's blouse or a tie that will match the lady's blouse color. And they're very dressed up, that kind of thing, so that they look like they are a duo. Your performance must have an intro. Everything has to be memorized. And remember that at the end of that intro, you are stating title and author. You two can look at each other and interact with each other on that intro, but you immediately have to slide back into that offstage focus for the performance itself. One of the other areas is that the scene has to be from memory. You do not have a black book that you're using during this. The introduction needs to be creative, and somehow, it can set the scene, or it can set a theme. It can do anything. What you're going to find with these types of events is that the time limit, including the introduction, is 10 minutes with a 30-second grace period. Now, that 30-second grace period is not to be abused. The judges are specifically told if it goes 10:31, this duo cannot take first place. It can only be ranked second and down. What I usually will tell my kids is this: get yourself to, because you'll notice that it says no time minimum. This is true. However, what I tell my kiddos is this: if your scene is 6 minutes and it's really good and it's really well blocked out and it's character driven and it's all of these good things, and then you come up against a duo team that does 10 minutes of the exact same all of the different things that I just said, that judge is going to literally look and go, I had 4 more minutes of really great stuff from this team, and they're going to rank them higher than you. So why give them that option? What I'm asking my kids is this: hit 8 or 9 is preferred and above. And truthfully, you want to shoot to cut that piece to sitting at about 9:30 or 9:45. so that you do not go over that 10:30 grace period. Okay. And that's kind of one of those sticklers that I really kind of adhere to, because 1031, you're out. And those are easy fixes. Those are easy fixes that you can take care of. Okay, my expectations. I always look for, does that duo team seem to work really, really well together? Is that blocking creative? Is it unique? Is it well thought out? It does not, listen, blocking does not have to be extensive. Keeping it nice and simple is usually preferred. Does the blocking imply a location? Where are they? Simple gestures, simple movement, any of those kind of things that can kind of help to set that scene. And you will then see through that blocking and movement whether that duo team works well together. Duo teams don't necessarily have to be best friends. And sometimes the best duo teams, they're not. They just work together and have the same kind of work ethic. I also look to make sure that those characters are believable and that the story is solid. Does it take us on a journey? Does it have a strong beginning, middle, and an end? Okay. That it ends, it could end with a cliffhanger, and that's okay, but it needs to be a solid story. It can't be just something that you just pulled out of the air because you needed a duo, and you can't expect that to be competitive. Okay. I always also say that my kids must have it at least 3/4 memorized before class performances, so that we are starting to see all of this stuff in the mix as they are presenting it. So this video link is for a fabulous piece that was in 2012 called Dr. Horrible's Sing-Along Blog. You will have to go to the PowerPoint to be able to play this, because I'm not going to play it now for you, obviously, but they are so creative in how they create all of the weapons and the gestures and the interaction. And you can see that they are not touching. And they're using that offstage focus. They're using creative music transitions. And it's just a great, great piece. And the kids love to watch some of these. It's terrific. This one is called The Wizard of Hip. And it's only part 1 of 2. This was shared with me by Miss Rosie Valdez Block, and these 2 young men are phenomenal. I want to say that this is actually a poem, and they took it and added in all of the character work to the piece that was written there, and all of the beat and the rhythm that was added. It's just a phenomenal piece, and these young men are amazing. This one is called The Invention of Wings, and it made it to the national stage on 2017, and it is super, super powerful. I cannot wait for you guys to see it. What you're also going to find within these slides is this. This is from the NSDA website, speechanddebate.org. And when you click on it, it will take you to a page of comments about what to expect when you're competing in a particular event. This one happened to be duo. NSDA has gone back into competitors who made it to that national stage and have asked them, could you give us some ideas about what to expect within the event that you excelled in? And so I've included the PDFs for a lot of these NSDA events that we offer here in Arkansas as a potential site for you to be able to read and to enjoy. DI. Ooh, she's so intense. So DI is dramatic interp. Dramatic interp is a performance of a play, a short story, or a published work. Sometimes people will use articles from magazines if they're written in first person. It's kind of a wide open range of things and materials that you can use. And remember, the more that you search and work your way through it, the less you are apt to meet that piece in a round at competition. If you start to use those search engines, you may find that piece gets used and you may come up against it. And then you've got it's not bad per se, but you're going to see the same piece and it takes a little bit more of the competitiveness away from it. Competitors can compete with many or multiple characters. However, in DI, we're seeing that this really and truthfully goes towards more of a monologue styled piece, and keeping it all about the character, that main character, with maybe just a couple of characters that pop in for a short amount of time, but we're going on that journey with that one particular character. It must include an intro with title and author. It's 10 minutes with a 30-second grace period. No props, no costumes can be used, and it must be memorized. These are, you can use focal points, okay, or you can directly contact and connect with the audience, however you want to do it. Focal points are the eyes of the other character that you are talking to, and you set those up on the back wall before you get started. And so you'll even see in some of these videos where the kids will literally do this. They'll look up, they'll scan the room just a little bit so that they're setting that area of where they're going to put those focal points. And then they'll come back and they'll normally say, "Judge ready, timekeeper." And then they pop into their characters and they'll use those focal points. That is what they are doing in those videos when they are kind of setting themselves up and they're scanning. They're kind of getting themselves set up to set those focal points. Okay. I always tell my kids this: 10-minute monologues are preferred. I just feel like you want to pull us in with that DI story, that it has to have that strong beginning, middle, and an end. And if you can find a piece where, like this, it starts on a high point of like a funny point, and then all of a sudden the story takes a turn and it spins and spirals into a more serious tone. Those are really powerful pieces as a judge to watch. And so if you can find and search for a piece, that is what's preferred. Obviously, you want your kids to really focus on clear, concise character development for that character, physically, vocally, emotionally, all of those things that allow this very honest, heartfelt, deep character development that's happening and story that this person is sharing with their judge. You need to think out that blocking, but also remember, keep it simple. You don't have to go crazy. Oh, okay. This is one of the DIs. This young man was the national runner-up in 2013, and it's called An Original Masterpiece, and it is so beautiful. He just carries you along with this poor kid's story, and it's so powerful. I can't wait for you guys to see it. This young lady, her name, she presents a piece called "The Property Known as Garland," and where she talks about Judy Garland in her final days, and months together. And this was a 2017 DI. And then this one was in 2012, and this one's called "Crafty." And it is so witty and so much fun in the way that it begins and then it kind of takes a turn. So it's a great DI. Here you can find the NSDA link to what to expect when you compete in dramatic interpretation. And now we'll move on to humorous interp. Humorous interp, to find a piece, is 10 minutes in length, and you can go broad range. You can go using a play, a short story, a published work, an article. You can use a comedian's book. You can use a number of different things. The key to this one is that you must try to do as many characters as you can comfortably do. That is the challenge. You don't want any of those characters to blend together. You want to be able to figure out physicality, vocal choice, facial choice, all of that, height, all of that, to create multiple different characters and be able to pop between each one of those characters and tell the scene of a story, okay? It must include an introduction, same type of thing. There are no props or costumes that are allowed. And humorous interp uses many characters as you can comfortably present. So if you find a piece that's got 8 or 9 characters in it and they all start to do this and blend together, you need to be cutting characters, or you need to cut the piece and move on and find something that has less characters that you can comfortably develop. Okay? The monologues are acceptable. However, when you get into a round and you've got one character versus somebody who's coming in and doing 7 or 8 characters from memory really well, they're going to beat you out every time. So you want to find a piece that has a number of different characters and keep them clean. It is a 10 minute with a 30-second grace period, and then you're going to use focal points to be able to differentiate also between those characters. And remember, as you're watching the videos that I've got linked here, those focal points aren't all at the same level. We're not all the same height. And so what you're going to do is you're going to pop into one who's a little bit shorter and place that focal point up. You're looking up more, and you're going to place another person looking down if they're having this conversation, so that you're going to pop down and then pop up and then pop down and then pop up, so that you're coming to the understanding physically that the focal points are different. One of the things tricks of the trade that I do encourage my students to do also, especially if they're starting with HI, is to take their piece once they've cut it and highlight it versus the characters that are there. And you'll take a sticky note and you will place it on the wall. And that is the character's focal point where you always pop into every time that you come to speak in that character's voice. So that helps those beginners to be able to lock into those focal points. Some of the things that I encourage my kids, the things that I look for, is that it must have 3 or more characters, but not too many that you can't handle it. Okay. Clear and concise character development for each character, meaning vocally, facially, physically, and that the pops are clean and crisp between. We'll talk about pops in just a second. You're going to make sure that it's a really strong story, beginning, middle, and an end, and don't pull some scene just because you can. Because you need a piece, and the other thing also is if you have a long story, you're going to need to cut it. Don't just pick one section of it, but you also don't want to spell it out so much that you're trying to tell the entire story in a 10-minute time frame. Sometimes that is not successful whatsoever, and it's really difficult to do that. Listen, on a side note, the hardest thing to do is to find pieces. That is the hardest, most difficult thing. You will hear my Forensics 4 kids telling my Forensics 1 kids, good luck, Godspeed. That is the hardest thing to do, and it's okay. Because it is hard. And what you're doing is you're trying to find just the right piece that works for you, that you can handle, that you think is going to be competitive. And the search is really hard. And so the more, and I tell the kids, I'm not going to spoon feed this for you either. You got to find a piece that speaks to you. And then I can help you from there. That is how I run my classroom. I've done this for 13 years, and that's how I run my classroom. And I find that the kids are much more invested in regards to finding those pieces, locking into those, and having more fun with it. And so just kind of going from there. The pops are signature for HI. Not necessarily used very much in DI, and then they are also kind of used in POI, but POI is its own entire beast with page turns and all of that. HI is literally quick transitions between each character. You are popping from one character physically, facially, vocally, into another one where they're just kind of like really shy and then popping back. Okay, they can use sound effects. There's a number of different ways that you can see nationally what they're doing, so that they're using different things to crispen up those transitions between the characters, so that it's nice and crisp, and that it keeps that flow, and it's very clear who's talking when that scene happens, and so it doesn't get mushy, which is one of those challenges. This young man is spectacular. He made it to the national stage as a 9th grader in 2017 with this piece called Tammy the T-Rex. He ended up taking first place. This is the warning flag that I want to give you, because there is some sections here that are very, very inappropriate for the things that he has been, that he does. However, The piece itself is so creative in how he presents it. I always tell my kids, watch maturely. Know that this is one of those areas where this piece would never fly with how he does it in the state of Arkansas. However, he's first place on the national stage. He made it through a panel, a 35 to 45 judges and a finals panel of 15 judges to take first place in the entire country in 2017 with this piece. And yet it was deemed inappropriate here in the state of Arkansas. And so you just watch it. If you want to share it with your kids, you can. But it is very crisp and clean and concise and such a hilarious story that your kids will love it. This young man does a piece called Defending Your Life, and his sound effects are really great. But this young lady, Taylor Hedrick, the way that she uses her voice and her vocal cords and the way that she creates this Halloween haunted story is so good. It's creative and fun. And then this young man does a piece called Kicking and Screaming, and he is the national champion in 2019, where his facial expression, you can see it right away. His facial expressions are so good. So good. Here is the link to what you can expect from competition in regards to HI. And now we're going to move on to the Arkansas events, which are prose, poetry, storytelling, and duo improv. Now, prose and poetry are a little different inside the state of Arkansas. NSDA does not offer prose and poetry the way that we do it. Ours is 5 minutes with a 30-second grace period. Theirs is an event called Oral Interp, where you will bring a prose and a poetry to tournament, and they are 10 minutes in length. Your prose will be in round 1, poetry is round 2, prose in round 3, poetry in semifinals, and you'll perform prose in finals. Okay, so you can kind of see the difference. In the state of Arkansas, they are black book events. They are at NSDA as well, but they are 5 minutes with a 30-second grace period. So let's jump into just prose. Prose is literally a single prose form that has a quality, strong beginning, middle, and an end type of thing. The reader must use the script. However, the script is memorized, and it is done in a black B&B performance notebook. We call it a B&B. And it's a book that's kind of small-ish. It's a 3-ring binder, and you place your piece in that, and you cradle it in your arm and turn those pages as you are performing and creating the physicalities and things like that. It is what we call a black book event. An introduction must be presented as well. That can, in its broad range, you can give a theme. You could tell the story up until the point that we're starting. You can something content-wise that you want to develop. There's a number of different things that you can do with those pieces. And then title and author is present, and you can move. We weren't able to do that in the past, but now you can move. And what I tell my kids is this: this is interpretation. This is prose interp. So you can't go crazy all over the place with movement. But if you want to look at your classroom floor and maybe go like a 3-square parameter or a 4-square parameter, and then just keep it in that square. And your time limit, inclusive of the introduction, is 5 minutes with a 30-second grace period. For me, the things that I look for is there multiple well-developed characters? Is it a strong, cohesive story? Does it take us on a journey? Or is it one of those things where it's really clear they just picked the first chapter? You cannot do that. I tell my kids this: take the classroom time and read the entire story. Learn about what this journey is for that main character so that you can bring that out in the performance. The prose piece itself does not have to be the entire story, cutting it down. However, the performance should have a strong beginning, middle, and an end. Okay? You can even set it up that it leaves us hanging, and that's fine. In that B&B, and you'll see this in just a few moments, I ask that my kids put their piece on black pieces of paper. It blends in with the black book. If you are literally holding your black book like this and you accidentally tip it, you're going to see those white pages instead of if they're black with the white story glued to the top of it, it's a little less distracting, especially if you hold it like this. It'll blend in. And I tell them, you want to be looking here. This is the teller of the story. This is where the emotions come through. You need to be able to tell the story through your eyes and through your voice and connecting to your audience. You don't want them distracted with white pages or any of that kind of stuff. This young man it was the national champion in 2018 for prose. So with this one, you'll see as a 10-minute piece, you'll see that he does have black pages, okay, so that it kind of blends in. Remember that it's a 10-minute piece on NSDA Nationals, but it's only 5 minutes with a 30-second grace period here. In poetry, there's two different ways to be able to do poetry. It is a black book event, but there's one way where you can do it the traditional way, and then you can do it as a program. The traditional way, the way that you set it up, is that you've got poem 1, poem 2, poem 3, poem 4. And what you're going to do in your introduction is you're going to start the introduction and you're going to talk through it. And when you get to the poems, you're going to go in the first poem titled this by this person, poem number 2, this title by this person, poem number 3, title by this person, poem number 4, title by this person, okay? In a program, a poetic program, you're going to take as many poems as you need to get it to that 5-minute time length, and you're going to blend them together. So you're going to start with poem number 1 as your teaser, you're going to transition into your intro. Then what you're going to do is you're going to come back to poem 1, you're going to move to poem 2, go back to poem 1, go poem number 3, and end with poem 1. So you're blending it all together. Within that intro, you will need to give the title and author of each one of those poems. However, because it's blended, you then include what's called the because statement. And so you'll say, this has been built on a theme, and the theme of this piece is love. And in the following poems, title, author, title, author, title, author, we see that love can transcend many things and you'll give the title of it, a poetic program, because love precedes all, something like that, okay? It's a lot more invested than the traditional style. Traditional style, what you'll do is you'll state the title and authors in the intro. And then when you get into the piece, every time that you turn the page to start the new poem, you'll just state the title. Okay? I hope that's clear. If it's not, I can email me. My email is right at the end of this video, and you can see that, and I can try to answer that for you. The reader can move and present and create characters. The key that I always tell my students is this. You want to make sure that it is a powerful piece, but it needs to be very character driven. I want you to come at this as a character telling this story, and then use the character development to be able to develop this. So even if it's a program, you've got a character driven piece. It needs to be maybe, and I say this idea about slam-esque. Listen, I do not want to see a slam poetry piece, okay? However, there is great value in watching a slam poet and listening to them in regards to how they tackle rhythm. So if you can use some of the rhythmic aspects of what they do, that is great. That is great, okay? What you will see also in this performance, Ashley Meyer, she is this powerful, powerful piece about female Barbie and how that is so not what we, what women in today's culture even are like, and how it's just blown out of proportion. But what you'll notice also is those white pages. If she were to tip them down, you're looking at the white pages and not her face, and that therein lies some of the problem. I also have included the NSDA Poetry Finalist 6th place for 2018 in here as well. And then we move on to storytelling. Storytelling is different by state. Sometimes you will see storytelling done where they just sit on a chair and they don't move and they create all the voices, and it's kind of like campfire stories. That's not what we do in the state of Arkansas. You will use one chair, but you use that chair as creatively as you possibly can, whether it's a backpack or whether it's a door that you're locked behind, or it's a mountain and you step over it. What you want to do is you want to approach the storytelling piece by thinking about your audience as children, and not like 7 or 8 or 9 year olds. We're thinking like 3 to 4 year olds, where you have to keep their attention at all times. So that energy level has got to match that level. Your introduction is included just like everything else. It is a 5-minute with a 30-second grace period. And hey, listen, make the library your friend. Get into those children's sections and start digging. Try to find a piece that you don't think any other people are going to do. Skippy John Jones is fine. The day the crayons ran away is fine. But you're going to see it a lot, and you want to make sure that you've got a piece that you can create everything crazy over the top and fun. And the minute that you find a piece in a library or in a Barnes and Noble children's section, the minute you find a piece that speaks to you, nab it right away. Take it. Trust your instincts and jump on it and try to then bring it to life. So, the thing that you want to remember in regards to storytelling is that it needs to be high energy and creative. Very well developed characters that set the precedence of each one of the character styles. You can use pops between those characters and have fun. The blocking has got to be creative and fast-paced and fun to watch. If you are not out of breath by the time that you get done with your piece, you've got a problem. Because remember, those 3 to 4 year olds, the minute you start to pull it down and lose that energy, they're going to get up and go off and play somewhere. And you got to maintain their attention. Okay. So this young man was the national storytelling champion of 2018. He does not use the chair as much as we do in the state of Arkansas, but he does a really good job of telling this story. And so if you wanted to give that a watch, that'd be great. The last thing I'm going to cover in this video is duo improv. The biggest misconception that I want you guys to understand is that improv is improvised. If you think that is a correct statement, you're mistaken. It does require a great amount of practice with your partners. You need to understand how that other person works and what that you both bring to the table. Okay. And so it's important that you select a partner that's going to listen, that they're going to be able to help move the story forward, that they're going to respond honestly and maybe not necessarily go for the funny each time. They're not going to force a storyline, and that you can feel really in sync with to create together. And the only way to do that is to get into practice rounds and rehearse. Okay. And so the good partners don't negate what the other person is giving them. They don't refuse information and go, yeah, but. It's yes and, okay? The other thing that you want to avoid is you want to avoid a scene turning into something that is one-sided. And here in the state of Arkansas, what we've changed it to now, which I absolutely love, is that we are in an improv round. You draw your topic in the round, and you can, I think you draw 3, you pick one, and you have 7 minutes with a 30-second grace period to be able to create the story and perform it. Okay, so you're literally standing up in front of that judge, and you're honed in on your partner, and you're talking through this and then you come back out so that the judge knows, I'm ready to go. Okay, so it is very improv-esque. You will practice that in rehearsal as well. Okay, you've got to practice all of those things. There's numbers of different improv searchers that you can find on Google online that will pull up topics for you. Exercises that you can try. Do an entire scene in gibberish. I mean, yeah, and be able to communicate physically, to be able to see what your partner is giving you, and you can only respond in gibberish back and forth. Another challenge would be to rhyme it. Speak everything in verse. Maybe you spend an entire afternoon after school just working on story arcs. Can we do a strong beginning, middle, and an end? Okay. Prop transformation. We can't use props in tournament. However, you can use it to kind of get to know each other, working through things and how each other works and come up with ideas. And then you can pantomime if you wanted to in a round. Okay. There's so many different ideas of ways to be able to try to tackle duo improv. But the more practice that you as a team can do, the more successful that you're going to be, and the more fun you'll have. The remember for competition is to keep it clean. No bad language, no inappropriate content, any of that kind of stuff. You want to include your topic into the story somehow, okay? Coming back to it, or if you can bookend it so that you're starting off with the title of the topic in some sort of dialogue, and then you end it with that same thing, saying it together. It's like a bookended thing, okay? Practice together, run rounds together. It will show, and your team will grow from there. Here's an article called The Ultimate Guide to Improv 101, Improv Tips. It's helpful. If you want to use it, you totally can, and grab in there. And listen, if you have any questions at all, if there are areas that you're not really sure of, I'm happy to help in any way that I can. You can reach me at bboxhigdon@bentonvillek12.org, and I am here to help you just in any way that I can. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that this has been helpful.